There's a lot of alternative insurance policies and programs and risk transfer mechanisms out there, right? Besides just your standard property general liability policies. And interestingly, in the segments we work in, we see a lot of these specialty type coverages or risk or exposures. We just had a conversation, Aaron and I actually asked me a question about political risk insurance. And quite interestingly enough, I did a lender review about 2 years ago where we had some collateral in South America where we had this live discussion, right? It's very real. What is political risk? Political risk is essentially a government. It could be war, it could be hostile, it could be a government just seizing property, right? Usually in a hostile territory or something where there's a geopolitical event that's going on, usually associated with war, just unrest. Political risk is when either property is seized, and for example, real property, right? We have a hotel, and the one example I had was hotel property, right? A hotel resort property. There was the potential for it to be seized by the government. Or secondly, aviation, which is another one of our sectors, as you know, if you land in an area, depending on your radius of operations of your aircraft, you could truly have this exposure. And we'll talk a little bit about these separately. So again, political risk insurance is not a property damage. It's not a general liability, right? It doesn't mean something actually happened or they're the cause of loss. There's no actual damage to your property or damage to your aircraft. It means that it's seized, right? You've lost the ability to own that, asset essentially. So why is this important? Lenders. If you are lending any type of collateral in areas where there's some type of civil unrest or potentially civil unrest, you need to understand the exposures there and then either price your debt accordingly or depending on the type of recourse that you need, or we can go help structure a political risk program for you to make sure that that collateral is adequately protected. So again, property, if it's in an area that's a hostile area, you think that there could be some government unrest, and I'm not saying anything specifically in your region specifically, I worked on one with a lender where we identified some properties in South America where at least this exposure was there. So again, as I always want to mention, it's our job to point out the exposure and point out the risk. If you want help transferring it, we can absolutely help with that. Aviation, as we know, it's another big thing, and kind of a subset here on your aviation policies. If you have larger jet aircraft, you're having to get certain permits and et cetera, you probably know this, but always make sure your radius of operation includes the countries that you're flying to. It's of utmost importance, right? Even general aviation for our aircraft, like I'm allowed to fly to the Bahamas. In fact, we're going to the Bahamas tomorrow, right? That's within my radius of operation. Don't think there's going to be any political unrest in the Bahamas. We expect that they're going to let us take our airplane home. But this is just an example. Now, I've looked at flying to, there's some other regions. Again, we're not calling out any region specifically, but there's a higher chance of political unrest, potentially seizing of assets and aircraft. So if there's any questions about political risk, this is an alternative coverage, right? There is insurance for this. A lot of people might not know that. It's extremely specialized. It's extremely niche. We actually have someone that we source that specializes in this for our lender properties that are in areas that might prevent this type of exposure, provide this type of exposure. So my name is Douglas Francisco, Spartan Risk Management. Any questions on political risk, feel free to reach out. Be happy to help you out.